My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. The notification sat there on my screen like a bomb that hadn't detonated yet. $5,000 in 1 month. From something my husband had absolutely no idea about. I stared at the number for what felt like hours, even though it was probably only 30 seconds. My heart was hammering so hard I thought it might actually break through my ribs. What had I done? What was I about to lose? But before we get to that moment, before everything fell apart and I had to make impossible choices, I need to tell you about the life I thought I had. Because that's the thing about secrets. They don't live in a vacuum. They grow in the cracks of something that looks perfect on the surface, and by the time you realize how deep they go, you're already bleeding. Let me take you back, 3 months earlier. My name is Ashley, and I lived in a beautiful 4-bedroom colonial in the suburbs of Atlanta with my husband Michael, our 2 kids, Emma, who was 7, and Lucas, who just turned 5, and our golden retriever, Benson. From the outside, our life was exactly what every mommy blog told you to aspire to. The house had a pristine white picket fence, a wraparound porch where we'd sit on Sunday mornings with coffee, and a finished basement where Michael had set up his home office. We'd bought the place 5 years ago, right after Michael made junior partner at his law firm. We were living the dream, or so I kept telling myself. Michael was the kind of husband who looked good on paper, tall, handsome, a steady 6-figure income, the guy who remembered anniversaries and brought home flowers for no reason. He coached Lucas's soccer team. He helped with homework. Every other Sunday we'd do a family movie night, all 4 of us piled onto the oversized sectional with popcorn and terrible commentary from Emma about why the plot made no sense. Our families thought we were perfect. Our friends thought we were perfect. Hell, I thought we were perfect. But there was this thing, this quiet thing that had been growing for years. Michael had become obsessed with money, not just earning it, controlling it. He managed all our finances, which had been fine at first, but somewhere along the way it became less about efficiency and more about, power? He knew every dollar I spent, every single dollar. I'd buy a coffee and he'd notice. $12 for a latte? Ash, that's ridiculous. We have a perfectly good machine at home. I wasn't working when we bought the house. I'd been a graphic designer before Emma was born, but Michael had made it clear that it made more sense for me to stay home with the kids. His income was solid enough. We didn't need mine. And for years, I was genuinely happy with that decision. I loved being home with my babies. But as they got older and started school, I found myself with more time and less purpose. I felt like I was disappearing into spreadsheets of other people's needs. The truth was, I wasn't happy. I hadn't been happy in a long time, and I think Michael knew it, but he didn't know what to do about it, so he just controlled the things he could control, including me. That October morning in the kitchen, I was making Emma's lunch for school while Lucas watched cartoons in the living room, and Benson waited hopefully for scraps. Michael came downstairs in his charcoal suit, the one that made him look like he'd stepped out of a law firm commercial. He kissed the top of my head, that performative kiss he'd perfected, and grabbed his coffee from the counter. "By the way," he said, not looking at me, "I noticed you went to Target 3 times last week. 3 times, Ash. That's excessive." I didn't even look up from the sandwich I was making. I forgot things. I had to go back. "Maybe make a list," he said. "It's wasteful otherwise, and wasteful is expensive." That was it. That was the whole conversation, but it lodged itself in my chest like a splinter. I was 36 years old, and I was being lectured about Target like I was a child who didn't understand the value of money. I'd given up my career, my independence, my identity, and apparently my right to make small decisions without a financial audit. I didn't say anything. I never did. I just smiled and nodded and finished making the sandwich. But something shifted that day. Something small, but it was the beginning. That afternoon, after Emma got home from 2nd grade and Lucas from preschool, after I'd made snacks and listened to their stories about their days and helped with homework, I sat down at the kitchen table with my laptop while the kids watched a movie. I'd kept my old design portfolio online, just for fun, updated once in a blue moon. But that day, I looked at it differently. I looked at it like maybe it could be something again. My hands hovered over the keyboard for a long time before I did anything. I wasn't planning to do anything. I was just going to look, just going to see if anyone still cared about my work or if the world of design had completely moved on without me. I posted a subtle update on my Instagram, nothing major, just a few new pieces I'd designed over the years for friends, some logo work, a website I'd helped redesign. Nothing that would make Michael notice, nothing that would raise any red flags. And then I waited. I didn't expect anything to happen. I really didn't. But 3 days later, I got a message from someone who owned a boutique marketing firm downtown. They'd seen my portfolio. They had a client who needed some packaging design work. Could I do a few concepts? They'd pay per project, remote work, flexible hours. They didn't need an employee, just freelance support. My stomach did a flip-flop. This was it. This was the thing I'd been waiting for without even knowing I was waiting for it. I said yes before I could think about why I shouldn't. It was supposed to be just one small project, $1,000 for a few hours of work. That's what I told myself. One project and then I'd be done. I'd have $1,000 that was mine, that I'd earned, and that would be enough. It would make me feel less invisible. But one project turned into two turned into three. I was working late at night after the kids went to bed, in the early mornings before Michael got up. I was teaching myself new software, updating my skills, rebuilding the part of myself that had atrophied during 7 years of marriage and motherhood. And the money. God, the money kept coming. By October, I'd made $3,000. By November, $5,000. I opened a separate bank account at a different bank, the kind with online-only access. I set it up with a password Michael would never guess. I told myself I was just being smart, just protecting what was mine. Every single day I told myself I'd tell him. I'd find the right moment and I'd just say it. Hey, I've been doing some freelance work. I've made some money. I want to have my own savings. Is that okay? Simple, honest. The kind of thing a normal, healthy marriage could handle. But I never did. Because I was afraid. Afraid he'd say no. Afraid he'd tell me to stop. Afraid that the one thing that made me feel like myself again would be taken away. So I kept the secret. I let it grow in the dark, fed by late nights and deleted emails and a locked account statement that I checked obsessively every single day. By the time that notification hit my phone on a Tuesday afternoon in December, I had $53,000 hidden from my husband. And that's when I realized I had no idea how to stop. Part 2. The Reckoning. The secret lasted exactly 4 weeks longer than I thought it would. It was a Thursday afternoon in January. Michael had left work early, something about a client meeting getting canceled, and I was in the kitchen prepping dinner when he walked in. I didn't think anything of it. He did that sometimes, came home early, wanted to surprise the kids with an extra hour before bedtime. But his face was different. Closed off. Dark. "We need to talk," he said. Not a question. Not even really directed at me. More like he was saying it to the air, to the universe, to confirm something he'd already decided. My stomach dropped. I'd felt that feeling before, but never like this. Never with such absolute certainty that my world was about to change. "Okay," I said. My voice came out smaller than I intended. "The kids are in the living room. Can we?" "They're fine. This will only take a minute." He set his briefcase down on the counter. He never did that, always took it to his office, and pulled out his laptop. My laptop, the one I used for freelance work. My blood went cold. "I was looking for the Wi-Fi password," he said, still not making eye contact. "I needed to check something for work. Your laptop was on the kitchen table, open, and I saw an email notification." I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. I was a deer in headlights, and the headlights were bearing down at 70 miles an hour. From someone named Marcus Chen at Pinnacle Marketing, saying congratulations on hitting your $53,000 milestone and asking about your availability for a bigger project. He finally looked at me. His eyes were cold, colder than I'd ever seen them. $53,000. Ashley, what the hell is this? I opened my mouth, closed it, opened it again. There was nothing I could say that would make this better. There was no explanation that would turn this moment into anything other than what it was. A lie. Exposed. Undeniable. "It's just freelance work," I heard myself say, which was stupid and weak and exactly the wrong thing to say. "Just freelance work?" He laughed. But it wasn't a laugh. It was something darker, something that sounded like breaking glass. "You've been hiding $53,000 from me. From me, Ashley, your husband, the man who provides for this entire family. And you're telling me it's just freelance work?" "I earned that money," I said, and I could hear my voice shaking. "I did the work. You did it while I was paying for this house, this life, while I'm busting my ass at the firm so you can sit home and do whatever you want, and you hid it from me. You opened a secret bank account. You deleted emails. You've been lying to my face every single day for months." He wasn't yelling. That's what made it worse. He was speaking in this controlled, measured tone that sounded like a judge handing down a sentence. "I wanted something that was mine," I said. The words came out before I could stop them. "I wanted to feel like I had some control over my own life. I wanted—" "You wanted to betray me," he interrupted. "That's what you wanted. You wanted to make me look like a fool." I could hear Emma's voice from the living room, asking Lucas if he wanted to play a game. The normalcy of it, the beautiful, ordinary sound of my children, made me want to cry. "Michael, please, can we talk about this? Really talk about it? I can explain. I was going to tell you, I needed time to figure out how." He closed the laptop, set it on the counter with a deliberate click. "I want that money transferred to our joint account, all of it, today." "No," I said. The word came out before I could think. "No, that's my money. I earned it." His face changed. Something shifted behind his eyes, and I suddenly understood, with a clarity that was almost physical, that I'd just made a terrible mistake. "That's not how this works," he said quietly. "That's not how marriage works. That's not how our marriage works." He turned and walked out of the kitchen. I heard his footsteps on the stairs, heard his office door close with a soft, controlled click. I stood there in the kitchen for a long time, my hands gripping the edge of the counter so hard my knuckles went white. The dinner I'd been preparing, chicken piccata, Michael's favorite, sat half-finished on the cutting board. Steam rose from a pot of water on the stove. I turned off the burner and walked upstairs to the bedroom. Michael was on the bed, still fully dressed, staring at the ceiling. "I want you to understand something," he said without looking at me. "I have been nothing but good to you. I gave you a choice, work or stay home with the kids, and you chose to stay home. I was fine with that. I supported it. I've paid for everything. The house, the cars, the vacations, the kids' school, everything. And this is how you repay me? By sneaking around behind my back? By building a secret life?" "It wasn't a secret life," I said. "It was just work." "It was a lie," he said flatly. "A lie is a lie, regardless of what you call it." He got up and walked to his closet, pulled out an overnight bag. "What are you doing?" I asked. "I'm going to stay at a hotel for a few days. I need to think about whether this marriage is salvageable." The word salvageable hung in the air between us like a threat. He packed methodically, underwear, socks, toiletries, a change of clothes. He moved like a man going through the motions of a script he'd already written. When he was done, he zipped the bag and looked at me. "You need to think very carefully about what you want," he said, "because right now, you're in a position where you don't have a lot of good options." He left. I heard the garage door open, heard his car start, heard him drive away. I sat on the bed for I don't know how long. Minutes, hours. Time felt broken. Eventually, I heard Emma calling for me. She wanted dinner, wanted to know where Dad was, and I had to put myself back together enough to function. I made the kids sandwiches, put them to bed, told them Daddy had to work late, lied again, because apparently that's who I was now. A liar, a deceiver, a woman who'd made a catastrophic mistake. That night, alone in the house, I did what I should have done months ago. I called a divorce attorney. Her name was Linda, and she came highly recommended by a friend of my mother's who'd gone through a messy split 10 years ago. I met her in her office downtown on Friday morning, while Michael was still at the hotel and the kids were at school. She was a woman in her 50s, sharp-eyed and sharp-tongued, the kind of person who didn't waste time on pleasantries. "So he found out about the money," she said after I'd finished explaining the situation. "Yes. And he's threatening to leave. He said he needs to think about whether the marriage is salvageable." She nodded, making notes. "He's already talked to a lawyer, I guarantee it. That's why he hasn't come home. He's figuring out his position." My chest tightened. "What does that mean for me?" "It means we need to move fast," she said. "The money you earned is yours. It's marital property, yes, but you earned it through your own labor. However, the way you handled it, the secret account, the hiding, that looks bad in court. It looks like you were trying to hide assets. So we need to get ahead of this narrative." "What do I do?" "First, you document everything. Every email from that marketing firm, every bank statement from that account. We need to prove that this is legitimate income from legitimate work. Second, you need to protect yourself. I want you to go home, gather some important documents, birth certificates, social security cards for the kids, medical records, and secure them somewhere safe, not in the house. You think he'll... I think he's angry and he's humiliated and he's going to try to take control any way he can," she said. "You've already taken control once by earning that money. He won't like that. He'll want it back. So we're going to make sure you don't lose everything in the process of him getting what he wants." I left her office feeling like I'd stepped off a cliff. This was really happening. This was divorce. This was the end of the life I'd been living, the one I'd been so desperate to escape that I'd built an entire secret world to get away from. Michael came home Saturday morning. He didn't come upstairs. I found him in his office, sitting at his desk with a cup of coffee and a stack of papers in front of him. "I've made some decisions," he said without preamble. My heart was pounding so hard, I thought I might be sick. "I'm willing to work on this marriage," he continued, "but there are going to be conditions. You transfer all $53,000 to our joint account, immediately. You cease all freelance work effective now. You never contact this Marcus Chen person again. And you go to couples therapy with me, where you can explain to a professional why you felt the need to betray me." He looked up at me. "If you agree to these terms, we can move forward. If you don't, I'm filing for divorce on Monday, and I'm going to make sure you lose custody of the kids." The threat hung there, concrete and heavy. "You can't do that," I said, but my voice was shaking. "I'm a good mother, you know I am." "I know a lot of things," he said. "I know you've proven you're willing to lie and sneak around. I know you've hidden assets. I know a judge would be very interested in a mother who's so self-absorbed that she's willing to deceive her family for money. That doesn't sound like someone who should have primary custody to me." I felt something shift inside me, not breaking, crystallizing, hardening. The fear was still there, but it was being slowly replaced by something else. Anger. Clarity. A sudden, shocking understanding that I couldn't let him do this. I couldn't let him take my children and use them as leverage against me. "I want to talk to my lawyer before I agree to anything," I said. His face went dark. "Your lawyer? You already have a lawyer?" "Yes. You're serious about this. You're actually serious about divorcing me." "I'm serious about protecting myself," I said, "and my children." "Those are my children," he said, his voice dropping to something dangerous and low. "And if you think I'm going to let you raise them in some apartment somewhere while you play freelance designer, you're delusional." "Then we'll figure it out in court," I said, and I turned and walked out of his office. I went back to Linda's office Monday morning with copies of every document I could find: bank statements, emails, contracts, photos of my portfolio, everything that proved I'd earned this money honestly, through legitimate work. Linda reviewed everything methodically, her expression growing darker as she read. "Okay," she said finally, "here's what we're going to do. I'm going to file for divorce first. That gives us the advantage. We're going to go for a 50-50 custody arrangement, the standard in Georgia. And we're going to argue that your freelance income is separate property because you earned it during the marriage, but with your own labor and your own intellectual property. The secret account looks bad, yes, but the underlying income is defensible. What about the house? I asked. The house is marital property. You'll likely have to buy out his half or sell and split the proceeds. But Ashley, I need you to understand something. She leaned back in her chair and looked at me directly. He's going to fight dirty. He's already planning his custody strategy. He's going to paint you as unstable, dishonest, unfit. He's going to use that money against you. He's going to make this as painful as possible. I don't care, I said, and I realized I meant it. I can't go back to that. I can't let him control me like that. The divorce was filed on Tuesday. Michael found out when the papers were served at his office. He came home that night furious, and for the first time, I wasn't afraid. I'd already made my decision. I'd already chosen a different life. What followed was 3 months of legal warfare that drained me in ways I couldn't have anticipated. Michael hired an expensive divorce attorney, a man named Russell who had a reputation for being ruthless. They filed motion after motion. They demanded discovery of every financial record, every email, every text. They subpoenaed my work with Marcus Chen's firm. They tried to argue that I'd been neglecting the children while doing freelance work. Never mind that I'd been doing it after bedtime and before dawn. But here's the thing about the truth. When you have it, it's hard to break. Every email I'd received from Marcus was professional and documented. Every payment was legitimate. Every project I'd completed was in my portfolio, time-stamped, verifiable. The judge could see that I'd earned this money honestly. She could also see the pattern of control in our marriage, the way Michael had demanded access to every financial decision, every purchase, every moment of my autonomy. In March, we had a hearing. Michael's attorney argued that my secret account proved I was financially deceptive and therefore unfit to make financial decisions regarding the children. My attorney countered by presenting the pattern of financial control and arguing that my freelance work was a reasonable response to feeling powerless in my marriage. The judge, a woman named Patricia Hornsby, maybe 60 with gray hair and sharp eyes, listened to everything. Then she made her ruling. "Mr. Patterson," she said, looking at Michael, "while I understand your frustration regarding the manner in which your wife conducted this freelance work, the evidence is clear that she earned this income legitimately. The secret account is a concern, but in the context of this marriage, it appears to be a symptom of a larger dynamic in which the petitioner attempted to maintain some financial autonomy. That is not evidence of unfitness as a parent." She turned to me. "Miss Patterson, I want to be clear that hiding assets is not something I condone. However, I also recognize that you were working within a marriage in which financial control was being used as a tool of coercion. I'm not going to penalize you for that." She outlined the terms: 50-50 custody of the children, with Michael paying me child support based on his income. The house would be sold, with proceeds split equally after the mortgage and realtor fees. The money I'd earned would be considered separate property and would remain mine. Michael would be responsible for his own attorney fees. It wasn't a victory in the way I'd imagined. It was a reckoning. It meant my children would split their time between 2 homes. It meant I had to actually figure out how to be independent, how to build a life that wasn't tethered to anyone else's expectations. But it meant I got to keep my money. It meant I got to keep myself. The day the house sold, I cried in my car for an hour. Not because I'd lost the house. I'd never really loved it, not truly. But because I was saying goodbye to the person I'd been when we bought it. The woman who'd believed that a perfect house could fix an imperfect marriage. The woman who'd thought that sacrifice and silence were the same as love. I found a small townhouse in a different suburb, one with good schools, and a community garden where I could see myself building something new. I furnished it slowly, deliberately, choosing things I loved rather than things that fit someone else's vision. I started taking freelance projects seriously, not hiding them, but building them into a real business. By the end of 2024, I was making $8,000 a month, and I wasn't hiding a penny of it. Emma and Lucas adjusted better than I expected. Kids are resilient in ways that break your heart and restore your faith simultaneously. They were sad about the divorce, but they weren't traumatized. Michael was actually a decent father, and he saw them every other week without complaint. We developed a rhythm, a new normal. One afternoon in May, about 4 months after the divorce was finalized, Marcus Chen called me with a job offer. A full-time position as creative director for his firm. Competitive salary, benefits, the whole package. I could work from home if I wanted. I could set my own hours. I said yes before I'd even finished the sentence. I'm sitting in my office now, a real office, with a door that locks and a window and a plant that I've managed not to kill. And I'm thinking about that girl in the kitchen who was so afraid of being visible that she hid her own success. I'm thinking about the moment I realized that the worst thing that could happen to me wasn't losing my marriage. It was losing myself. The money I earned in secret became the thing that set me free. Not because money is freedom, it isn't, not really, but because earning it meant I had to stop accepting the narrative that I was supposed to be small, grateful, controlled. It meant I had to start believing that I deserved autonomy, that I deserved to take up space. I still talk to Michael sometimes. We're cordial for the kids' sake. He's dating someone new, someone younger, someone without a secret bank account or dreams of her own. I hope he's happy. I really do. But I also don't think about him the way I used to. I don't wonder what he's thinking or whether he approves. That voice in my head that narrated my life through his judgment has finally gone quiet. Last week, Emma asked me why Dad and I got divorced. I told her the truth, age-appropriately. Sometimes people want different things, and it's okay to choose yourself. She nodded like she understood, and maybe she did. Or maybe she'll understand better when she's older and realizes that the most important thing her mother taught her was that you can't love anyone else if you don't love yourself first. The secret I kept almost destroyed me. The truth I finally told saved me. And sometimes, late at night, I think about that notification on my phone, $53,000, and I realize it wasn't money at all. It was proof. Proof that I was capable. Proof that I mattered. Proof that I'd been right all along to want more.